Hello, hello. My name is Arya Ramachandran. I'm from Winchester, Massachusetts. Today, I have the honor to be accompanied by Winchester High School Principal, Mr. Dennis Mahoney. Mr. Mahoney, can you please provide a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Arya. Um, I've been the principal of Winchester High School for 4 years. Previously, I served as assistant principal. This has been a lifelong dream come true, and it is not a day that goes by that I don't feel lucky to be the principal of Winchester High School. That being said, I definitely don't love being principal these days.
Yeah. So what has been the greatest challenge you've faced when transitioning from traditional to online school?
I think the challenge is the learning on the fly nature that everybody's doing. Um, it's also trying to meet and set expectations because every household is different, every student is different, and so families have wildly different expectations of what we should be doing or should not be doing, how much we should be doing, how little we should be doing. So we're trying to figure it all out on the fly, and I think we've done a tremendous job. If you take a step back and look at the big picture of our teachers are at home with their own families, trying to teach with their own children in their room or their pets. You've got to handle that stuff while also working with students every single day, assigning work that's completely different than what we've normally done. We're totally out of our routine. Sometimes the teachers have to be like IT. They're working as an IT person because a student can't log on. The large scale of what teachers and students are going through and how it's varied from household to household is the most significant thing that we're dealing with.
Okay. Now, how are special needs students being taken care of during these uncertain times?
Sure. We are providing as much as that's a good question. So any students that's in special ed, we actually have learning centers set up all day, every day during our normal operating hours for like a drop-in center. So if a student needs support, they're able to log in and have a live face-to-face like you and I are doing on a Zoom and get extra support. They're also in constant contact with their liaisons and their teachers as well. So no student is being left without their traditional level of supports. It looks very different, clearly, because we're not face-to-face. You can't look at the same sheet of paper. You're sharing usually a screen, but the actual support is, in some instances, maybe better because it's a lot more one-on-one work rather than group work.
That's very good that you're still able to manage those special needs kids during this stressful and some would say hectic time.
That came from that idea actually for the drop-in support center and for everybody to be online actually came from our special ed teachers because they love their kids and they want to meet the needs of their kids as much as they can. So they've actually been really proactive and working with new ideas on how to make sure that their kids are getting services and getting support.
That's terrific. Now, I know these times may be too hectic to deal with this type of stuff, but can you please elaborate on the mental health services that students could avail during this time?
Sure. Yeah, the times are a little too hectic, but we're still doing it because that's no reason not to. Mm-hmm. We have to look at everything as the glass is half full, where our staff is reaching out on a daily basis, setting up similar to Learning Center drop-in hours or scheduled hours for one-on-one support, one-on-one conversations. They've done a tremendous amount of sharing links and information for students to access and to work on skills that they were working on previously to close their achievement gap. So our mental health providers and our wellness support staff has been going above and beyond with one-on-one and sometimes group conversations, but mostly one-on-one private conversations so students can still access the curriculum.
Sure. Now, are there any specific challenges that Winchester High School faces that other schools may
not? I don't think there's any specific challenge that we're dealing with that other schools aren't dealing with. I think maybe the expectations of our traditional methods and how we do things is the challenge is trying to maintain those standards, the high level of standards, the high level of expectations. Maybe that's a little bit more in Winchester than other schools, but that would be an anecdotal opinion. I don't think we're dealing with anything that anybody else isn't dealing with. It might just be the percentages of what we're dealing with or the amount. I talked to all the Middlesex League principals every Friday. And I also have a group of principals who I'm in contact with of similar schools to Winchester. So I'm friendly with the principal at Newton North, Concord Carlisle, Weston, and a number of other area schools. And we're bouncing ideas off of each other, Bedford as well, to make sure we're kind of all on the same page, kind of all doing the same thing. And we're all, nobody is kind of deviating from the support paths.
Now, how difficult do you believe it will be for students to continue with the standard curriculum next year, given there's a different setting in schooling, and it's a bit different to learn on an online setting?
Honestly, that's a great question that I try not to give too much mind to right now. Sure. So it's definitely in the back of my mind. It's in the back of a lot of people's minds, but we simply don't know what September will look like. So right now we're living day to day in how do we calibrate? Are we giving too much work or not enough work? Are we doing too many Zooms or not enough Zooms? And then we have to look at the end of the year stuff before we start looking at September. We are talking about September, but only in a speculative way. So the end of the year, we have to look at what type of, are we going to do a graduation of, is it going to be digital? Or are we going to put it off, not knowing whether we'll be able to meet or not? Prom is pretty much out of the question because of the state expectations, but is there something we can maybe do in November? And then all these nitty gritty things are like, how do we get students back in to clean out their lockers? How do we get teachers back in to close their classrooms for the rest of the year? How do we get you to come in and get your stuff, your musical instruments, your art, but also leave all your books? We're not supposed to touch your books. If you're in a household that somebody has COVID or is a asymptomatic, you have an asymptomatic person, then the COVID is still on those books. It's still in the house. Yeah. So how do we do all that? Do we wait till September to collect books? Well, the longer kids hold on to books, the more they disappear from time to time. So
yeah, I understand.
A million things to think about. Mm-hmm. And September is in the back of our minds, but we're living trying to get to May right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to commend you on how you're handling it so far, because with online schooling and everything, it's going very well for me. And I'm just if it helps in any way, I'm still learning a lot. So thank you.
Good to hear. But
yeah.
It is different. It is different household to household, student to student, for sure.
Yes. Now, what do you believe are the biggest challenges that individual teachers are facing during this time?
The juggling of their daily lives. Just like students. So our students have been ripped out of their routine, but they're at home and, they have a schedule and for the most part, all of our students have different lives and different responsibilities at home. But for the most part, I think you guys are probably have an easier go of it than our staff does. Our staff is budgeting their lives with their families and a number of distractions where, sometimes we come to work and like it's going home is the work. Here, now everything is all in the same place at the same time. And it's really difficult if you're trying to do a Zoom and teach physics, but you have a 3-year-old that keeps trying to come into your room, or, you have a dog that's barking in the background. I think the biggest challenge is what the teachers have to face, like, for sure. And I know our kids are facing a number of challenges as well. We have a number of stories. We know that some parents took their kids to in the middle of nowhere, Maine, or upstate New Hampshire, just to get away from the bulk of where the COVID pandemic is. And we support that, but their internet is spotty. We have some kids that are in Canada right now. We have an international student body, and I know there isn't a lot of travel, but we know that people are not necessarily in Winchester. So what kids are dealing with in their own home situation is also significant to them, and we're mindful of that.
Okay. So as a father and a principal, do you believe that it's easier to deal with the COVID pandemic, given that you have two perspectives? And of course, I understand that it's not easier, but do you think these two perspectives help in anything?
It's funny. As a father, I do wish that my sons were more like Zooming more often during the school day, and it was more structured. But as an educator, I know that that's not the best thing to do. I don't want them on screens all the time, despite their best efforts to always be on a screen. Yeah. So I want them to, be outside and getting more fresh air and getting more exercise than they are on the Zooms. But academically, it concerns me. But I know better as a principal. I know better that these concerns are natural. They're what most other parents are feeling. in terms of like the idea that our kids are falling behind. This is a global pandemic. There's not one state in the union where kids are not, quote unquote, falling behind.
Yeah.
My kids and kids in Winchester, we could probably take an entire year off from school, and our kids would still not be considered behind compared to most schools in the country.
Right.
So I'm confident in that, but it is a natural thing for me to be like, oh, I wish they were doing a little bit more. I wish they were a little bit more engaged. But as a principal, I know that they're doing enough. They're doing enough to be engaged and continuing to learn at some level is what we're shooting for. They don't have to be taking 5 classes a day, trying to be masters of 5 different things every single day and having homework every single day, because that's not where we are right now. That's not what we're doing. And I never really believed that that's the best model anyway, even when we're in school.
Yeah, I understand. So given that Governor Charlie Baker recently has closed school till the end of the year, of course, have any new challenges arisen when dealing with this pandemic?
Nothing new. It's the challenge is the unknown. Those details of how we shut down the year, like talking about collecting books and stuff like that. We're literally inventing everything on the fly. And we have a great group, what's called our IMT, our Incident Management Team. And so we actually have planned and thought about a number of different terrible, occasions that could shut down a school, whether it be a storm or, some sort of act of violence. And global pandemic has been one of the conversations, but you can only put it in your mind. You can't have a playbook for this. So the challenge is, all right, we know. It was harder, to be honest with you, it was harder when we didn't know whether we were going to be shut down or not. We were speculating that we would, but we just didn't know. So now that we know, we have an end goal. We know there's a million things we need to do. The unknowns, we'll figure them out.
All right. Well, this is the final question. Do you have any parting advice that you'd like to give to the students and families of Winchester or anyone who's watching this?
Sure. Take a breath, relax. This is hopefully this is a lifetime event that we're going through, and school will always be here. Our kids are going to learn. They're not going to learn at the same rate or the same topics, but they're going to learn, and that's the most important thing. As long as they're engaged in doing something, they're going to be fine. It's about our health. It's about the health of people around us. So take a breath, relax. The whole country is going through the exact same thing. Kids in Winchester are going to be okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Mahoney. It was really helpful.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good luck.